Greetings everyone, welcome to CodeWithSrini. This tutorial is all about routing and navigation in Angular 6. A web app is incomplete without a means to navigate from one page to another. So, whenever a URL in the browser address bar changes, your web application navigates to the corresponding page. Now, to achieve this navigation, Angular introduces a module called the router or the Angular router. Now, before we jump further, please hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Your subscription motivates me to make more such videos. Thank you. The router gets instructions from the browser URL and navigates to a client-generated view. You can not only navigate, but also pass optional parameters that may be necessary or helps your component to display specific content. And the best part is, we can make use of the router to navigate on a button click or selection from a drop-down box. The router keeps track of history, so the back button and forward button will work seamlessly. Let's create an Angular application now. So it'll be ng new Angular routing, and that will be with routing parameter, and our style will be SCSS. Alright, our Angular application is set up and we are running it in a local host 4200. First thing, when we're going to work with the routing modules and router modules, we need to include this in our app module. In the app, and then in the app module we should include it's already included because when we gave our ng new, we gave it as ng new and routing as our param for the Angular CLI. So our Angular CLI automatically included this in our module. So you can find it over here. That's app routing module. So the first thing is import routes and router module from the Angular router. So we already imported that, and the next bit is we need to define our routes here. So the routes will take in the routing configuration for our application, and once you've done that, our router module over here will take it as for root. Okay, so what is this for root all about? RouterModule.forRoot is a static method defined in the router module class, what you see here, and we use this to define the root routes of our application. So whatever routes that you're going to define will be meant for the root of the application. Okay, when the application grows larger and more complex, we may break down into smaller modules. In that case, instead of for root, we will be having for child, right? But right now it's for root, and obviously we are going to break down the application into smaller modules and we'll be using for child. The router will have no predefined routes until we configure it. So let's go ahead and create a few components so that we can configure our routes. Right, the idea is to create a very basic application that is mainly focused towards project management. The typical project management will have a dashboard and the project list, and inside every project there will be list of task items that needs to be completed, kind of a to-do for each project. So to begin with, we need to create a couple of components and modules, right? So first thing is ng generate component, our dashboard. We're going to create a module, so ng generate module project with a routing. We need it with routing, so we got routing as well. Okay, this is also known as a feature module. So basically we are breaking our application down into a few modules. Okay, and the other one is, I hope I'm not going to use nggc. I'm not going to use this, but just for the sake of just to show some links and example, I'm going to use this. I'm not going to do anything with this component, but let's let it be right there. It'll be useful. Okay, so we created 2 components and a module. Okay, so it'll be a long journey from now on. Okay, and for the login, what we can do is we'll just keep a dummy link, and then going forward we can create our login. Okay, the first thing first, let's go here and get rid of this. Yes, that's done, and we got a clean slate application we can start with. Let's head over to our ng routing module. If you look at the routing module app file, you'll notice an import statement called ng module. Okay, so that's a metadata. It contains an imports and exports, right? This is to make use of our app routing module in our main app.module.ts. It'll make it available in the import statement of your main app module, right? So that's pretty much about the app routing module. Instead of routes, let's do it as appRoutes. So for the readability purpose, it can be routes as a predefined variable. We can have it, but we'll just customize it as per our needs. Now each route, okay, each URL map maps to path maps to a component. Okay, before I go further, let's start defining our route. Now let's start with creating an object. Let's open up the code block for our object, and then let's create a path which leads to nothing, and then it should redirect to dash component. No, it should path redirection. The redirect is the actual URL. It will accept the string, so we need to redirect any empty URL into a dashboard. A redirect will accept a path match. So it's either path match will, I'm not sure, I mean the path match will accept full or prefix, I guess. Yeah, it's prefix. It's full or prefix. I'm gonna open up our inspector so that we can see if there is any thrown up. Yeah, right. First thing first, error cannot match any routes URL segment dash. Okay, so we didn't define our dashboard component. Right, so let's go ahead and create a path for our dashboard. It will be it will be dash, not slash dash. Okay, and the component of our dashboard, so that will be dashboard component. This should work. Yeah, it works. Now what's happening here? Now this is the default route redirects to a dashboard. Therefore we see the dashboard works in our page as our default home page, right? So the intention of the path match is to use full. In most cases it should be full. Okay, if you want to know much about the path match, you can always refer the angular.io documentation. And the other one is, what if the URL doesn't match anything? Let's say if you have 1, 2, 3 like that, it should go to something else. We should show something else. So for that, let's have a path with a double wildcard characters. And okay, we forgot to create a component for that. So that could be ng generate component. Let's see how that's coming up. 404. Right, so component 404. Okay, 404 works, right? Yeah, if it's an invalid path, it goes to the 404. Now we almost set a very basic minimal routing configuration. Now the order of the routes is very important. Okay, the Angular by design implemented a first match win strategy, which means if the Angular matches dash, it will just go ahead and display the view, display our template in our view. Okay, so if nothing matches, it just goes down and down in this fashion. So nothing matches, it straight away heads to the wildcard characters and then display our 404 component. We can customize this component to show whatever we want. So the idea is show where more specific routes can be placed. The more specific routes can be placed on top of an array. Another thing is, in here we can also trace or debug. We can add one more parameter in our for root and then use this for tracing your route and look what's happening and in real time in the routing lifecycle. Okay, so once you do that in your app component, you might have noticed your router outlet as a directive. This is the main directive wherein all your components, or all your configuration, for now it's dash component. The router outlet directive is a major part wherein your routed components loaded here. When the browser matches a URL such as dash, the router module will display the dashboard component as a sibling element to the router outlet. So you can very well see here in our, let me just zoom in a bit. Okay, so setting the router links. Now, so far we have configured our routes and set the router outlet to render them. Now we need to find ways to navigate. Okay, to do that, we can create few links, probably. Let me create a nav and then our URLs set. Now go ahead and this is actually setting the router links. Okay, so it'll be dash. Similarly, now we have our dashboard. Okay, so this is how it works. So this is how you set your router links. In the property binding, you notice that routerLinkActive as active. This is nothing but adding a CSS class to your link, which says that that's the active link of your page. Okay, so before we go any further, it's a wise choice to add a Bootstrap in our application. Yeah, finally we installed the Bootstrap and then I applied some styling to my web application, so it'll have a subtle dark color as a background and a bright green for the active links or primary colors, things like that. Okay, so you can get this code, the link will be in the description, video description. Okay, so let's go ahead and style this up now. li, it should be something like class nav item. Copy paste this. Great, so we have done. Right, so what we do is we just copy paste. Right, so we got our menu bar neat looking. Okay, let's talk about the router state. So once you click on it, things should get going. Okay, and for the dashboard, let's create some dummy dashboard. I already have some design for the dashboard. It follows the class card and card header, things like that. So you will have, since it's a mock, I thought we will have a dashboard and upcoming task or completed task, which shows some sort of information about the project that's happening in the project. Okay, so ABC project, fill in your timesheet, or something like create a prototype or create a mock wireframe design, things like that. And then I thought to add some graphs, but which really not necessary for this kind of a tutorial. Now we're going to talk about the router state, which is very important. After each navigation cycle, the router builds a tree of activated route objects. So when you traverse through your routes, the router will build a tree of objects, okay, which is basically an activated route, wherein you can access the parameters and the query params and things like that, or even you can okay, the navigation part is done by the router. Okay, they make up the current state of your route. So whatever happening when you click on a link and make a route, the activated route object holds everything. I'm going to talk a little bit about the application, which is it's called a taskman. It will have loads of mock data. Okay, so before we proceed, let's do a fun part. Like, let's do a little bit of design change in our 404 component. So I just found an image from the interweb of right, so this will be our 404 page. Okay, for now let's close this. Right, now we need to create a project module. Okay, sorry, we have already created a project module. Now we need to create a set of components for our project. So once you click on it, you'll be dealing with more component, because project is a feature module. Okay, we need to make use of them. So having a routing module is purely a developer's choice. Okay, such as like this. I mean, breaking down into a module, or just define this route inside the app module right here, and then going forward. In a very bare minimum application, you can just go ahead and do a flat approach, like create a appRoutes and then just add the RouterModule.forRoot here itself. You can very well do that. Okay, so it's acceptable. If you ask me, for a smaller apps, having the routing configuration inside an app module is fairly a good choice. Okay, whereas if your application has feature modules such as this one, like this is just an example, but what if you're going to work on a real world project, real world scenario, wherein you will have plenty of modules that you need to deal with. It may include many such feature modules. Now, who knows, then it's a wise choice to have a routing modules. Okay, so today I decided to have a project as routing project as a separate module. So let's work on our project module in the integrated terminal. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to create two components. So nggc project, this will be our base component, which will be supported for routing, and nggc project list. Okay, so this will show up the list of projects. So if you look into our project folder, we will be having two components that we just created, and then we will have our project module. So let's call it as project routes and change the name to, please pay close attention to this, because this is kind of a hard part. Now we need to define our child routes inside this project routing module. So that will be, let's define a path with, it's an empty path. So it'll be, I'm going to just comment and show you. So whenever from the root, if the URL pattern is projects/projects, okay, to make it more clear, it'll match this particular section. We are inside the project modules, and from the app routing module, we will be defining the project. I'm just going to come in a bit. So the base component is project component, will be our base, and it will have a children. So obviously the children will have, for example, if the URL matches project / the ID of your project, or list, or an empty projects, or just / project/projects. So it'll show a project list. Then we will have a path that says empty, and children will be this part of the path it will be able to group our child routes, right? Am I doing anything fishy here? Yeah, I forgot to open up a code block for the object. I'm just gonna format this a bit, and in our children, let's define a path which will hit first if there is an ID in our project's parameter. Okay, so component, oh, we didn't define our project details component, so it'll be ngGC project the details. It's going to be project details component. Nice. And path of component, which is obviously our project list component. Now the most important aspect, I think, as of Angular 6, okay, in Angular 7 things are a little bit different, but in Angular 6 I think we need to make some modifications to our project module. Okay, let's go to the project module, right? If you notice, the project routing module is imported into our project module TS, okay? And we need to expose this information, whatever we created here, we need to expose this into our exports and whatever we have done so far over here. So now this will naturally export it to our main app module, sorry, not app route. Okay, so far so good, and it's quite a mouthful and it's a long journey. Please bear with me. Now the next important aspect is, now we need to go to our app routing and define our project. Okay, so let's go to the app routing and configure our project's route. Okay, so it's going to be path of projects. So once you hit the project, what it should do a load children, and then project/project.module, and we are going to import project module tab. Okay, so the project stays in the same path as the app routing module, which is right over here. So it's in the same path, same folder. Okay, and then you need to use .notation / which will reference from your app routing module, and then call this directory, and then use the project module TS file, and then the project module, the actual project module class, which is this, right? Let's close this. Okay, and yeah, so the load children, if you notice, we have instead of component we gave load children, because users visiting the project component will serve as the routing component, which is the address of our project module file that is located in the project module TS. Okay, that is relative to the AppRoute. The pound sign or the hash separator that you have seen, followed by the project module, is needed to load our module by lazy loading. Okay, so this is one of the important concepts in Angular when you're going to deal with routing. Let's test whether it's working. It looks like it's working. So the activated, yeah, it's routerLinkActive kicks in and it's working. And then if you go to the dashboard, it works, it pretty much works, but something's amiss here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead to the base routing module for our project, which is we forgot to include the router outlet. All right, so our project link works, and then it loads up the project works as well as the project list works. Okay, I'm gonna just close everything up so that we can focus and concentrate only on a few things. Okay, about the lazy loading, right? We can load just the necessary feature modules only when requested. For example, we just load it only when the project module is necessary. We can speed up load time for users. We can also use this feature without even worrying about the initial load bundle, right? So that's one of the major advantages. So the application will be much quicker compared to like including all the components at once. Okay, so that's done. And okay, I forgot one more thing. Let's go ahead and add, we are in project folder, so ng generate service. I have a habit of typing fully instead of nggs, which will be project. All right, we have our project service, and we're done with pretty much everything. Now in our project template, I've just got rid of the project works, and we'll be listing only the project list works. Before proceeding further, let's create some more model for our project. So we're going to create two TypeScript files, that is inside the project, that could be project.ts and project.ts, right? We'll be having two files to work with now. I already have this. It's a model. We can use this as a data type in TypeScript, and then the more project. So I already have this. I don't want to just repeat everything. Okay, so we have the definition of our data type project, of our class project, and then we have defined it in our type as projects of array, which will be projects which will be using it across all our services, and we have the actual data that we are going to display. The thing is, in the real world scenario, this will be coming from the database or the backend from some other API service. Okay, so just blindly imagine this as your API for now. So that is why we have created a project service. So let's go to the project service and then create some service for our project to get listed over here, which will be projects of observable. All right, it's not included. No, let's just keep it like that. Gonna include this and return of, which is an observable projects. Right, so this is the get part of our getting the list of projects, and let's move over to the project list. So in our project list, we need to add few things here. Are we going to use an observable? Yes. Okay, so we need to use an observable. In that case, let's define a variable, a field in our class called projects, and a $sign. A $sign at the end of a variable is a naming convention for observable. In Angular, whenever you see a variable with ends with a $sign is called an observable, and that should be an observable of projects, which is a project of array. Click on the light bulb and then import that the definition. Right, so this is one part of our puzzle. The next thing is include the most important aspect is include the service for our project list, which is project service, and then private route, activated route. Right, as I've discussed earlier, that the activated route holds all the information. It's kind of holds the state of your routing params. Okay, so now in the ng on init lifecycle, which is initialized once the component is loaded, right, we're going to get the project information, so which is a list of project service. All right, so okay, looks like it works once you do a restart. To make it doubly sure, we will create a style for our list. So let's get rid of this, and then it'll be ul dot list group li, and the li will have a class of I'm going to copy that. I already have it. So this is straight out of Bootstrap, and then we need to iterate our project. ng4 structural directive let project dollar, which is an observable, then async pipe. Let's get rid of this. Right, now obviously we should have an anchor tag, a project name. Something's wrong here. Okay, it's been a very tough ride as of now. I've been getting this working along. It was not working as expected. So okay, so here we are. We have the list of projects listed over here. One thing that happened here is, if you notice here, the projects is an observable, and then we are assigning this observable to our project service called get projects. Okay, let's get rid of this. Now we are using our activated route with a param map, which we will be discussing later on in the. We're going to use this route param map to get the required parameters, but actually we don't want to use this. We can go ahead and use the subscribe method provided by RxJS. Okay, so what we're doing here is we are making use of our activated route, which has a param map, and then we can pipe this to a switch map. Okay, the switch map is technically will perform an operation on the observable. It's basically out of scope of this tutorial. Earlier it was not working because we didn't include the async feature. So if I get rid of async, let's see what happens. Get a bunch of errors which says object type object ng4 only supports binding to iterables. Okay, so it becomes an observable. To convert them, you can use async to an iterable data. That's what it's trying to say. Now so far so good. We have to check while clicking. Yes, it goes to a project details work. Now we're gonna do something over here to get this working. All right, so let's build our project details page. Let's go to our project details over here, which is, yeah, I already have predefined the layout for this project details, so it will be this. And right, we have hit with a error because we have not defined any field in here. Because in the project detail component, if you notice, I have the project field, which is obviously an array, and then it will have a name and the created by property. So, and if you notice, the rest of the information is just a mock-up. Okay, so it's not a real information. It's just to give some throw some information about the projects that are going on inside this project name. So in the real world, it will be a list of task items and a checkbox on the left hand side of these items. Once you click on it, you will be presented, you'll be taking into further more information, wherein you will be feeding more information, or you'll be changing the status of your ticket items and things like that. Okay, so let's not go into the details of how the project management works. We can just focus mainly on navigating from the project list and to our project details page. The project name, let's fix this thing up and then go forward. Right, so first thing first, let's create a variable called the project. Private the project is a project. Okay, so let's add it up over here, and then we should have the ID that's been selected. So ID of number equals 0 for now, and then in the constructor, obviously we should include our routers. So private route activated route route private route activated route private router. I'm not going to use router, probably I'll be using service, which will be our project service. Damn, okay. So in the onInit function, we should be working like this. We're going to use the route params, and let's subscribe and get further information. So let's give a params to our subscribe method, and then subscribe method. Okay, so inside the subscribe method, let's just console our param. Okay, console log it and see what's happening there. Okay, looks like it's still showing up our error. Okay, the first good news is we are getting the ID as 1, which is over here. Let's try something else. Let's try 8. Are we getting ID of 8? Are we? Yes, we are getting ID of 8. Okay, so as of now, the routing works perfectly fine. But now we need to fix this error, which is quite simple. Now, before we proceed further, let's set the ID equals params.id, and then now we have another issue. Yeah, let's go to we need to get the name of our project, right, to assign it to the project. So for that, we need to define this in our project service. Quite simple, isn't it? So in the project service, all we need to do is get project by ID, and it should be the number in the argument, and we'll be returning the project as our data type, return type. So let project equals projects, and we're gonna use the find method of x with a fat arrow x.id equals plus ID. Okay, sounds confusing. Simple. In the find method, what we're trying to do is we are matching the projects with the ID with the one that we have supplied as an ID in the argument. The plus ID means it's typecasting any string into an integer, right? So that's the meaning of it. Return project. So this should pretty much clear things. Now, okay, one more step to complete. Let's open up our project detail component. We just left it halfway, so it should be this dot the project equals this dot service dot get project by ID, and then it should be this dot ID. Brilliant. And yes, it's working. So advanced reliable real estate portal created by this fella. So that's the one we clicked, right? So let's do the college inquiry chatbot. Right, so we are getting the right information after we pass the navigation from the list to the project details. So things are working as expected. Now let's move on quickly to our login or the authentication. Okay, have we created anything for What's that login? Yeah, no, we haven't created anything for login as of now. So what we'll do is, let's first create a module called, now let's go inside our app and then ng generate module of auth routing. Now it should show up. Yes. Okay, so after we created the auth module, let's go inside the auth module like auth, and then ng generate ng-gc a component for login at first. Okay, so that's done. Hang on a second, we don't have a auth routing we have an auth routing module, so that's fine for now. Okay, and we need to define the routes. Let's call it as app-routes. Okay, so that will be sounding much modular and it is more close to the module that we are working. Okay, so we are working on auth module, so it will be auth route, plain and simple. So in this auth module, routing module, will have only one route as of now. Luckily we have to deal with only one path for now. Okay, and a component as a login component. Right, we need to check our login component. We never gave anything to our login, so let's go to the app component. Login is there. Let's click on the login and see. Yes, it works, but it's not pointing to the right component. Something's wrong. Let's fix them. Okay, what I believe is instead of lazy loading, this particular module is not a lazy loading module, right? I totally forgot about that. So what we need to do is, in our imports we need to add our auth module. That's right, so auth module is included and the login page will work. What does it mean? And if you notice, we included this auth module on top of our app routing module because when the auth module loads first and it performs the first win strategy, so that our login path will win first and then give way to our login component. Okay, so far so good. Right, okay, the login works, and let's design our login page, which is again a simple Bootstrap login page, which I just got from the Bootstrap straight away. So no information changed whatsoever. So it's a div with a card, that's it. And right, so we have a button with a login, and we're not going to process these information for now. Okay, in a realistic application, obviously this will be a form builder, and then once you click on it, this will get processed. So once that's done, let's move on to our login component. In our login component, let's go ahead and quickly scramble some of the fields. So it'll be private is logged in, which is a boolean of false, and then in our constructor we should have an auth service of auth service. Where is it? That's not showing up. We didn't create an auth service as of now. Okay, so that's my bad. nggs auth, dang, it's there. Okay, so service and public router, the router. Okay, so we're going to use router because we will be navigating if the user is logged in, and if the user is logged in, we will navigate into a dashboard page. Okay, right, so the constructor job is done. Now next bit is, do we need on it? Let's just keep it that way. So next thing is we need a login method, and the login will be, before going further, let's go to the auth service and get the authentication service defined. Okay, so the first thing first is logged in is false, and we will have a login method which is an observable of boolean. Now let's make use of something nice. Local storage dot set item and is logged in JSON dot stringify true. So we're not, obviously this is the place where you need to have an authentication mechanism. You can see our super strong authentication mechanism here, which is fairly simple, and then we need to return our true. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. I'm not sure whether this will work, but and in the login component we need to add few things which we forgot, which is a this .auth service .login, and we need to subscribe. In our subscribe method, open an empty, and a code block. So this code block, let's just do a console log and see. Console log this what if I send a data? Let's see what the data says. Right click on it. True. Yeah, that's the one that's sent from the auth service over here. That true is sent over here in the form of data. So let's just have this as data. So looks like it's working. Now our login mechanism is pretty much done. Now what we need to do is this dot is logged in equals this dot auth service dot no, what am I doing? Should be this data, which is just a boolean and crucial piece of information. This dot auth service dot no, and we should navigate to the once the login is true, we should navigate into a dashboard. So I'm not going to confuse. I'm getting confused quite a lot. So to navigate, we have the router class, which is a this dot router dot navigate to our dashboard. So let's see, our login page comes up. Click on it. We are going to a dashboard. Cool. Now when we come back to our login page, we should have a logout button instead of this form. Okay, so to do that, in our login HTML template, we can create a ng if structural directive equals if it is not is logged in. Okay, right now it should. Okay, before that, in our login component, we need to in our auth service, we need to add one more method to check the status of our login. Okay, to get this hide and show thingy working. What is that? Login status. That will have a observable again with a boolean. Now that's a return off, which is a observable, which will return an observable. So it's a json.parse of local storage dot get item and is logged in. Obviously this should be in a variable, but for now this is perfectly fine. Okay, in the login component TS, we need to find a way to make use of ng on init, which is just sitting there. Once the component lifecycle is loaded on init, we need to call this up auth service dot check login status, and we need to subscribe them like the one we did over here. Subscribe it to val of this dot is logged in dot equals meaning of this is you are passing the boolean to your val in the subscribe method, and then the fat arrow means you are executing this section of the code. So this val will be assigned to the is logged in method. Okay, instantly you will notice our login form disappears, which means we are on the right track and it's working. Now let's open up another div with a class of card, and got a copy of a HTML snippet. ng if. So the opposite of is logged in, not is logged in, is logged in. So when you logged in, you should be showing a logout, and when you log out, we don't have a method to handle the logout function. So in the component, let's go ahead and log out, saying that first thing is this dot is logged in equals false. Okay, but when you do login again, you'll get this back because we need to do a logout in the auth service. We need to clear the data. Okay, so void. So in the auth service, in the logout, in the local storage, we need to remove an item which is named as is logged. Okay, so this dot is this dot is logged in equals a false. That's the right thing. Now log out and refresh, come back and do a login. I forgot to add a logout method for the service. Okay, so it should be working now. Brilliant, it works now. So once you log in, it goes to a dashboard, and then go to login, it shows up the logout page because you are currently logged in. Now when you click log out, it should show our page, and when you go to dashboard and come back, since we are logged out, it should show our login pages. Right, it's working. Finally it's working. Now the next part is implementing the route auth gods. Now what is a route auth god? Okay, let's go ahead and create a god for our route. So that'll be auth. Let's go ahead and generate a route auth gods for our routes. This will protect our routes. Okay, so ng god auth. now we have our auth guard, and we have a few information over there. So in the auth guard, right, we have can activate, and we'll be having can activate, which is a default thing. We don't need a snapshot for now. We needing a route activated route. Oh, actually we need a snapshot activated route, and we just need a boolean. We don't need an observable for now. Okay, we just need a boolean. That's right, and return as true. But wait a second, before we proceed further, let's create a check auth with a return type as boolean, and then we need to do before that, let's go ahead and add something in our constructor. Right, so what we are going to do is we are going to add a check authentication method, and then that in turn will go we'll call the auth service method, and then it will check whether the authentication is, if the user is logged in or not. So that's the idea of what you're doing. So if you notice, the can activate is implemented, and like that we'll be having a can activate child and can load. So there are a bunch of predefined methods we can define for a route, and we can protect these routes using these methods that are implemented. Okay, so first thing first, in the constructor we will include our service. Okay, so the other one is we also need a router in case if there's any anomalies in the routes or authentication, or if the route is protected. I'm just bluffing. Router. So the router is added in our from the Angular router, and the RSJS observable is ready, and auth service, I'm not sure, I'm not going to use the observable, but we will be using the auth service for now. It will be if this dot auth service dot is logged in. Okay, so we're going to return this as return true. So basically, if the user is logged in, we're going to return true. Okay, if not, this dot router dot navigate, we're going to force the user to a login page, and we're going to tell them false for whenever we are going to check the authentication. Okay, for the can activate, we have route. I think we won't be using this, but anyway, since it's defined by the ng CLI, Angular CLI, let's just stay there. So we will have a return this dot check auth. This is done. So far we have can activate. Now what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and test this can activate for our dashboard and see if this works. So let's head over to our routing. Nope, let's close everything up. Let's open up our app routing, and then in our dash component we need to add can activate. If you notice, can activate child, and can load. But now in this tutorial we will look into can activate and can activate child. So can activate with a square brackets, we call this auth route guard. Okay, so now if you hit the dashboard, doesn't load up, but if you go to projects, it will load up. See, there you are. So once you click the dashboard, it will move into a login page, prompting you for a login. Alright, so far it was not working as expected, because in our auth service I totally forgot to add this dot logged in is logged in as true in our login method. So what happened is our check auth function was always returning a false, because we haven't set, it was taking the default as false. Okay, so now it's fixed and it's working as expected. So now login and the dashboard shows up, but when you log out, when you click on the dashboard, it doesn't show up. So the can activate works as expected. Now we need to move on to the other things. Now we need to apply this can activate child to our projects module. So let's go to the project routing, and so in the project, in the component, just add can activate in this. Let's add auth guard here, and then it's not added, so go ahead and add auth guard. And then for the child routes, can activate child and auth guard. Okay, now it should throw up an error, is it not? Yeah, it throws up an error because can activate child is not defined in our auth guard. So what we'll do is, it's a similar thing. Can activate child, is it going to be the same thing? Yes. So log out, login, projects, click on it, it works. Okay, so this is pretty much about routing and navigation. So we are done. Okay, so to sum it up, I got one more piece of information that I totally forgot to share. Okay, now let me show you how to add an optional parameters in your route. So far we have dealt with dashboard, projects, and login. Okay, but so the user doesn't have anything at all. So there is a terrible mistake happened. It should be users, and it points out we haven't gave anything to user. So let's copy this users. We don't need to give an auth guard for that. So users component. Okay, user works. So we're not going to focus on the design part of it. We'll be focusing more on the console part of it. So let me show you how to add an optional parameter in your routes. Okay, if you open up your router link for the users, the router link directive exports a property. We can make use of that, which is a property binding expression. Okay, so we can bind. I'm gonna get this in next line to show you exactly what we're trying to do. Okay, so we can use something called query params. Okay, so the query params property can be used as a property binding like this, and then we can open up an object and set a parameters like page and order. We can call it as newest. So our user will have bottom left corner. You will notice the query params listed there. So this is how we're going to, when a user clicks, your browser will show the query params, and this is the first part of it. Okay, since our object will have the page and the order, now we need to this is the sending part. Now we need to have a look at the receiving part. So for that, let's go to the users component. In the users component TypeScript, we need to get make use of the activated route. Okay, so that's a private route and activated route, right? And the ng on in it, we can add those optional parameters. To get it, we use this dot route dot param map. Okay, and as we know, param map is an observable. We can either use subscribe to it, or either we can just grab the snapshot. Okay, in the ng on in it, we can get these optional parameters. To get it, we use this thing called this dot route dot query param map. Okay, so since this is an observable, obviously we need to subscribe to it. Okay, subscribe, and then we can use params with a fat arrow, and then open a code block, and let's just console it and see our params. Okay, so this is the query params, and then in the params map we can see keys as well as the actual parameters that we have sent. Now we can go one step using the params, and we can just get, if you want to get the page number, you can just give it as page, and we get the result as expected. Now in a real world scenario, there will be a pagination component and links with page numbers. Okay, and when clicking the page numbers, the user component going to be the same, but the route parameters keep changing. So the parameters keep changing, like said. Okay, in majority of the cases, we need to subscribe to this observable. Okay, so in a more realistic application, the code will actually looks like this. Right, in a more complex application, we'll be subscribing to many observables and then managing the application, which is a far more advanced tutorial than this. That's why it is not covered in this particular video. Okay, so this is here just to show you how we can send the query params and get the query params through the URL. Right, so this is pretty much about the routing and navigation in Angular 6 for now. So far we have seen how we have break the application into modules, into one part called project at least, and into another module called login. One is a lazy loaded, and the other one is not a lazy loading, and navigating to a component and passing a query param, and we used can activate and can activate child guards to guard our routes. So if you like this video, please hit that like button and share it if possible, which will obviously motivate me to post more content like this. Thank you for watching. Good day and bye bye.